Begin, huh? So class begin aయిందా?
Prasad, it will begin in about a minute. We're just waiting for at least a few more
Yes,
people to join.
yes, sir, sure.
Mm. Okay, we have 42 people, so people might trickle in. So let us just get started and then people will start joining. Good morning, everyone. Can somebody confirm that I'm audible?
Good morning,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes,
sir.
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Your voice is
Okay.
audible, sir.
Okay, good morning. Thank you.
Morning,
This is
sir.
a class for MA English first year students. The course is course 2 and the title is American Literature. We started the course last week. I think we had a couple of classes before this one. And we started the course by talking about major themes in American literature. Then we discussed about Native American literature and the colonial literature. Colonial literature is basically when America was ruled by the colonial rule. Today, we will continue the discussion on American fiction and look at American short story. And after that, we will move on to American fiction of the 19th century. So we will talk about short story first, and then we will talk about novels. Okay. All right. The
Okay,
objectives
sir.
for
So,
today's class are to first understand the development of short story in the US. How did it start, and then where did it go from there, and who are the major short story writers. Then we'll talk about one of the greatest American short story writers. I mentioned him last week. His name is Edgar Allan Poe. We will then look at one of his short stories and see how we can apply what we have learned so far in identifying the major themes, and we'll look at the symbolism in his short story. Okay, the short story is called The Fall of the House of Usher. We will talk about it in a bit. Okay, like before, like the earlier classes, feel free to jump in and then give your inputs wherever required. If you're not giving any inputs, please go on mute so that it's not a disturbance for others. Okay. And somebody at the starting of the class asked or told that they didn't attend last week's class and then they wanted some repetition. So for that person, these classes are live streamed on YouTube and you can go to YouTube and then search on those. Maybe one of your friends can find the link for this particular class from last week and then send it to you in your WhatsApp group. You can replay it as many times as you want, pause it, and that's the good thing about these classes. They are recorded
yeah,
and
but
then they are
sometimes
there.
that is not open, sir. YouTube.
Oh, it's not
Uh,
open, is it?
that links they are not opened properly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
Prasad.
don't
Try
know.
for last week's American literature class. If it's not opening or if you have any trouble, then either reach out to the admin for B.R. Open University or something. Okay. First, let's try that and then see if the link works. If it doesn't work, then we'll reach out to somebody. Okay.
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 Okay, Sujata says YouTube link is there already. Sujata, can you do me a favor and then send a DM to Prasad and then give him the link so that he can directly go and watch whenever you have time. Okay, thank you. Okay, Prasad, so Sujata will send you the link. Okay, going back into the class, before we go into the development of short story, let's see what a short story is. Any idea what is a short story? How is it different from a novel?
The
What do we
word
Small,
length,
call
small.
limited word length in short story, and
Few
the
limited
characters
lines.
are
word
also
length in
very
short
limited.
story? Okay,
Characters
Yasmin,
are
hold on to
limited.
that thought because the next question immediately will be, what is the limitation? Like how many? Like 5,000 words is a short story, 3,000 words or 2 words, or
Less
what is it?
than that. Less than that.
Less than 3,000?
Yeah.
Okay, Yasmin says less
500
than
to,
3,000.
sir,
Maybe
500
5
to,
pages, maximum 5 pages, maybe.
Okay,
No,
five
even a
pages.
short message, sir. Giving the what message they want to convey. Small.
Okay, so Prasad is basically saying, okay, Prasad, you're saying there is no limitation when it comes to the number of words. As long as the message is conveyed, it's a short story. That's what you're saying, is it?
Yeah, basic on simple way. Yeah.
There can
Based
be
on
more
simple way.
characters who somebody wrote less characters, but they
sir,
more characters.
Okay. Arshia, were you
it
going to say something?
yes, sir. It would be between 1,000 to 10,000 words.
Okay. Arshia says 1,000 to 10,000 words, and anything greater than 10,000 words is a novel. Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good inputs. Just have these things at the back of your mind. Okay. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Mhm.
One second. Yeah. Have these things at the back of your mind, and then we will go through the class, and then at the end of the class, we will revisit this question and then see if we understand what a short story is from different thinkers' perspective. Okay. Now, like I said, different thinkers have given different definitions of a short story. Now, Edgar Allan Poe has written an essay. It's called Philosophy of Composition. In this, Poe says is a short story should be completed in one sitting. And what is one sitting? One sitting is of approximately half an hour. So anything that you can read at a normal pace. Okay, if you are a fast reader, that's a different story, or a extremely slowly reader, that's a different story. At a nominal pace, if you can finish the story in approximately 30 minutes, Poe says that is a short story. We don't have to go with Poe's definition of short story. All your definitions are valid. So we will see. Like I said, we will as we go in the class, we will see. Okay. Another person called Faulkner, William Faulkner basically says short story is about the author just going behind a character and writing down what he says or does. Okay, somebody just said some can have less characters, some short stories can have more characters and whatever. And like Prasad said, as long as the author is going behind those characters and then he can say what he does, what he says or what he does, then that's a short story. Okay. Another thinker, Somerset Maugham, a very famous thinker and author, he says short story should have a design, it should have a plot. If all of you have been in the previous classes, we have already discussed what a plot is. I think Yasmin was the one who explained us the difference between a story and plot last week. Yasmin, you're still in this class, right? Can you just give a quick recap for people who have not attended last class? What is a story and what is a plot?
Plot has chronological order of sequential order of events.
Okay, that's a story. I mean, it's the other way around. The story is the chronology. The story is the timeline, the sequence of events in your narrative, the who, what, where, all these things are the story. The plot is something that supports a story and is about how, when, why everything within that story happens. Okay. Whatever is happening is the story. Why everything is happening is the plot. Okay. So mom basically says it must have a definite design, which includes a point of departure, a climax, a point of test. Basically, it should have a plot. Okay, that's what mom says. Now, if you think of it from a Indian perspective, Jataka tales, and somebody mentioned in the last class Panchatantra tales, right? And all these are short stories. These can be called short stories. Now, let's go back to our original question. What is the difference between a short story and a novel? According to thinkers or theoreticians on short story, typical short story has about 1,000 to 4,000 words. Okay, Arshia, I think it was you who said until 10,000 words.
Yes, sir.
While, people differ in this number, a typical definition is 1,000 to 4,000 words is a typical short story. So, but then the problem with that is the number of words, because it's less, every small detail in the short story has to contribute to the effect of the story, right? I mean, you can't just have, big descriptions of characters saying that she's wearing a pink dress and then the dress is falling on the ground, she's walking and then the wind is blowing in her face. All these descriptions have to contribute to the effect of the story. If they're not contributing to the effect of the story, then they are useless in a short story. Why? Because they are occupying space. Okay. So you'll have to remember every small detail in a short story. In novels, the luxury that people have is there's a lot of length, right? So you can write about every small detail or anything that might not contribute to the effect of the story. Just for, ornamentation also, you can write something. In a short story, that luxury is not there. The space is very small. So the number of characters are small usually, and the descriptions are also small. Okay. And the setting of the short story has to be super brief, very brief. Okay. Any questions?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Now let's come to the American short story. What is the American short story? Some people say that the modern short story was invented by Americans and it's a uniquely American literary form. They basically say short stories have been the modern definition. The modern short story was invented by the Americans. There's an Irish author called Frank O'Connor. He basically called the short story the national art form of US. But is there any value to this? I mean, can they say that the modern short story has been invented in the US? There might be factors in early 19th century America which might have contributed to the short story. For example, American society did not have a complex social structure. Whenever we're talking about American literature, you will have to inadvertently or wantedly or deliberately, you have to compare it with the British counterparts because these are two parallel things that were happening. While there were some interactions and then overlaps, there were two different sets of quote unquote genres. So American society did not have this complex social structure. If you look at British part of social structure, they had a very rigid, the queen, the king, and then the prince, the princess, and then, the sirs and madams and everything. They had a proper social structure, which was very rigid. When you come to the American side, there is not such social structure. It was kind of intense and isolated life of Americans. And this particular aspect of American life can be expressed in a better way in a short story than in a novel. Okay, that can be one reason. That can be one reason why people call it the national, art form of America. Another reason is, like we discussed last week, this was the time when Romanticism was in full swing. Okay, we're talking about the 19th century. So it was when the Romanticism, the movement of Romanticism was in full swing. The simple social structure of America plus this artistic attitude of Romanticism, this combined were the recipe for a short story. So that's how the short story came into being in the US. Okay, two major things. One is the simple social structure of America. And then the second thing is the attitude of Romanticism or the movement of Romanticism or impact of Romanticism, whichever way you call it. These two combined were the recipe for a short story in the US. Okay. Before we move on to Edgar Allan Poe, I have a question. In general, in literary sense, what is a theme? We keep saying so-and-so is the theme of this book or this work or whatever. But what exactly is a theme? Any ideas?
The essence or the moral or the lesson.
Essence, moral, lesson. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? What is a theme?
Main plot.
Overview of a story.
Overall view.
Sorry, Uma, can you repeat it?
Overall view of the particular story.
Overall view of the particular story. Okay, Sajid, you said something. I
The
missed it
main
in
plot,
between.
the core idea.
The core idea. Okay, very good. Yeah, that describes the theme. Any other thoughts? What can be a theme of a
The
written work
message,
or any
sir.
work it is? Okay, good. Yeah, the message that they
The
are trying to
message.
convey.
So
Okay,
central topic and message of a story, sir.
perfect. Okay, central topic and message of this. That aligns with what Sajid said. Okay, good. Okay, theme is the major subject or the main subject, like you all are saying. It's the main subject that is being discussed or described in a piece of writing. Okay, I'm using the word writing, but you'll have to notice something. This is not, a theme is not specific to writing only. It's not confined to only written literary works. Even audiovisual content like movies can have themes, right? For example, what's a recent one? I'm hoping that most of you are Telugu audience. So Telugu audience are very familiar with this movie, Allu Arjun's movie Pushpa, right? A movie that can also have themes. It's not just books that have themes. Movies can also have themes. Like if you look at the example of Pushpa, then I would say like anger is one of the themes because he's like continuously angry. Ambition is one of the theme, right? He's very ambitious. And of course, the overall crime scene that is there in Pushpa, that is also a major theme. Any other themes that you can think of in that movie, Pushpa, whoever has watched the first part? Any
You
other
want
theme
to
that you
become
can think
powerful,
of?
sir. You want to
What is
become
that,
powerful,
Asaf?
sir.
Most films are
Powerful, okay.
He want to
Romance
become
also.
powerful, sir. Powerful,
Okay.
sir. He want,
Yes,
yeah.
so power is a theme, very good. Yeah. Prasad, you were saying something.
most films they speak about love, nature, something like that.
Love,
Most
okay.
there.
Love, okay.
So
That's
yeah,
there.
some hatred. Yeah.
Okay, hatred. All right.
Mm.
Okay, good. If you look at it, so there can be multiple themes that can be identified in a particular work, be it audiovisual like movies or books or any other medium that you're taking in or meaning making process is there. They can have multiple themes. Now, all of you have said certain themes from Pushpa, and then that doesn't mean that includes everything, right? I mean, another person can come up and then talk about another theme as long as it's major. So if you ask me, then I might come up and then say stereotypical masculinity is a theme. Why? Because Allu Arjun keeps jumping up and down and hitting people left, right, and center. That's the stereotype of masculinity, right? So that can be another theme. So as you think about it, you can come up with more themes. Why am I mentioning this? Because as we go further in these classes, we will talk about certain stories, or even today, when we talk about Edgar Allan Poe's story, we will, after we listen to the story or after we understand the plot, we will try and come up with themes. Okay. How is this going to help us? This is going to help us analyze literature as a whole. Okay. I'm not sure if there are any non-Telugu audience. I'm sorry, I just used Pushpa, but if for the non-Telugu audience, we can take up, whatever, Harry Potter series or something. I'd say in Harry Potter that fear is a theme, death is a theme. Like Prasad said, love is there,
Recent
hatred is
movie
there.
Donkey. So recent Hindi movie Donkey, it was about the immigration, moving
Uh,
from one place to another place.
okay, what movie is that?
Immigrants. Donkey, Shah Rukh Khan's movie Donkey.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay. Okay,
Sir,
yeah, it
Illegal
was about
illegal
moving from one
immigrants. Yeah.
place.
sir,
Okay, okay.
it can be revenge, good versus evil, or bravery and hardship. It can be that.
Perfect. Yes, yes. Like Prasad said, there are some universal themes which are there in pretty much every story that you take. Unless you take a horror story, there
Yes.
is somewhere there is love, somewhere there is hatred, somewhere there is, universal themes. Okay, good. It seems like we all understand what themes are. So let's move on to our guy of the day, Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of the greatest American short story writers and my personal favorite. He's in the picture on your screen. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Acha, okay. So
Yes.
he's on your screen. He looks like a very sad man, and rightly so, because he had a very sad life. Okay, starting to the end, his life was not good. He was born to the actor parents. Both his parents were actors. His dad left him in his childhood, and then his mom died of TB. And he was then adopted by Allen family, which is when he took the name Allen as his middle name. Now he went to college and gambled off money. In his first semester, he came home with about like $2,500 or $33,000 in gambling debt, which was a huge amount of money at that time. Then he got married, so he had a lot of debt. He got married, his wife died. He was a raging alcoholic. Then he had no friends because he gave really bad reviews about all the other authors. One author we have seen in the last class also. And we will see one of the authors in the next class. And he had a very bad relationship with his adopted father. He was forced to get into the military. Then he came out of it with a lot of difficulty. He was poor, even though his adopted parents were very rich, but then he himself was poor. And then his life overall was a very sad life. Now, his literary work is considered extraordinary now, but in his lifetime, he did not get much recognition. He did not get much money. Okay, this is something that happens regularly with artists. Okay, if you see like painters or somebody, in their lifetime, their work is
Many
not much
poets,
recognized.
poets, lives are very unmeasurable. Unmeasurable means it's simple apathy. But
Right. During their lifetime. But after they're dead, people suddenly recognize the value of their poems or paintings or their writings, and then they get the recognition. But by that time, they would be dead. So it would all be, I mean, they wouldn't reap the benefits of their writings. So all in all, his life was pretty sad, and he died in his 40th year at a very early age. Some people think that Poe's life and his experiences are what brought out his literary genius. But that is a point up for debate. I mean, like, we don't know whether if it really brought out the genius or he really had genius even without his, experiences, personal experiences. Now, I have listed a few short stories of Poe on your screen, but we will talk about one of these, a very famous story, the last one, The Fall of the House of Usher. It's there in your book. I think it's about 4 or 5 pages in your book. I'm not sure. But today we will try to understand Poe's writing style by using this particular story. But before going there, let us see what Poe thinks of short story. Okay. What does Poe think of short story? We've already seen one definition, which is you will have to finish the short story in one sitting, and that is when it is short story. Okay, that's what his idea was. Now, but then career-wise, his career is divided into 3 periods usually. And then we will talk about those, and then we will go into the story itself. One of the most important things, like I said, is Poe said is a short story writer. The first thing that he or she should decide on the effect that should be brought into the reader. And then incidents are made up to bring this effect. Okay, this is a very important and very crucial point for us to understand. So let us kind of think about this for a little bit. I'll repeat what I just said. Poe basically says, as a short story writer, he or she, whoever it is, should first decide on the effect that she should bring to the reader. And then they should bring the incidents that are made up to bring this effect. Okay, for example, if the effect that a short story writer needs to bring in the readers is, let's say, horror, he or she should first decide that. Then he or she should make up, incidents or characters or whatever that will bring this effect. He says the effect is more important than the characters. Basically, that's what he's saying. Okay, was somebody saying something? Okay. Anyway, like I was saying, for example, if you're a short story writer, the first thing that you will have to decide is what effect you want to bring on the reader. Do you want the reader to experience horror or experience sadness or experience happiness or whatever it is? Then you kind of weave your story and make up characters and incidents to bring this effect. Okay? As we will see, Poe was a master at doing this because he's not only a short story writer, but he was also a short story theoretician. We will see about that. He's written, like I mentioned earlier, something called Philosophy of Composition, in that where he explains this method of writing one of his most famous poems. It's called The Raven, among other things. Now, Poe's main idea is that works with obvious meanings are not art. He says if you write something which is very obvious, like there's one boy, there is one girl, they fall in love, they get married, then they live together and they die. That's it. If that's the kind of story, if it's very obvious, then basically he says that's not art. Art has to have an internal meaning. He says meaning in literature should be at a level just beneath the surface. The surface will have all the incidents, but just beneath the surface, the meaning should be there. It shouldn't be there on the surface. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, let me quickly go through the chat
Actually,
and then see if
the chapters are very big, sir. The lesson, whole
yeah,
lesson.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Less characters, no limits. Word limit is a short story. Topic explains story. Simple way. Lesson is big. Yeah, the lessons are some of the lessons are. I mean, the chapters are a little big, but then most of the chapters from now on will have either the poems or the stories or something written into them, or at least a big summary of it. So that's actually better. Like for example, we will see Melville's Moby Dick. I think we'll see it today. That book is about 400 pages, but then in your book, it has been concised into like 3 or 4 pages. So it's always better to have that kind of summary. Anyway, coming back to Poe, his stories are divided into 3 big buckets. It is there in your textbook or your course book or whatever you call it. One is the grotesque period, which was around 1830s. And then there was the arabesque period, like, Arabian kind of themes he wrote. And the last one is something called ratiocinative. Ratiocinative is just a posh word for detective. So basically detective short stories are ratiocinative short stories. And Poe is considered, in fact, to be one of the first one to write detective short stories in American literature. Okay. And we are, like I said earlier, we are only talking about Poe's short stories, but we have to remember that he also wrote a lot of poems and non-fiction works also. One of the essays that I mentioned, and then he also wrote poems, one of the poems also I mentioned, which is called The Raven. In addition to all this, he was also a literary critic. So he wrote a lot of reviews on other people's work. And like I mentioned before, he made a lot of enemies during his life because he wrote very bad reviews on his contemporary authors. Now, from a short story perspective, he not only wrote short stories, but also contributed to short story theory. Okay, he did all this, but like I said earlier, his reputation was super bad in his lifetime. Nobody liked him, and his life was in general very sad. So as you can see, this guy was not popular in a good way in his whole lifetime. Okay, now we come to the main part of this particular author. Let's move on to one of Poe's short stories. It's called The Fall of the House of the Usher, which was published in 1839. I'll just tell you the story very briefly, and then we can discuss about the themes. Will that work?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
So
sir.
this
Right,
story
sir.
revolves around three main characters. Okay, one is the unnamed narrator. So unnamed narrator basically means he or she does not have a name. It's he actually. He does not have a name, but he is narrating the story. And then there is another character, that is Roderick Usher, and then his twin sister. Her name is Madeline Usher. So the whole story revolves around these three people: unnamed narrator, Roderick Usher, and Madeline Usher. Okay, the story begins with an unnamed narrator coming into the house of his friend, okay, Roderick Usher. Why is he coming to Roderick? Roderick has sent a letter saying he is ill, and then he invited the narrator to visit him and help. So he basically says, I'm super sick, so can you please come and then help me? As the narrator comes into the house of Usher, he notices a thin crack in the roof down in the front of the house, okay? Now you'll have to remember this thin crack because it has a very big importance at the end of the story. It is then revealed in the story that Roderick's sister Madeline is also ill with an unknown disease. Okay, so it's not just Roderick who is ill, but then his sister is also ill. No doctor in town is able to find out what Madeline's disease is. It's some kind of mystery disease that this girl has. Now, Roderick and Madeline are the only remaining members of the Usher family. So Usher is the last name, basically. They are the only remaining members of the Usher family. And this house of Usher that these people live in, it comes from generation to generation. And it's a very old castle kind of thing, like kind of what is there on your screen. It kind of looks like that, very old, dilapidated state. Now, okay. Now, the narrator, he's a good friend as a good friend always does. He tries to cheer up Roderick by reading stories from the from the books in the library, and then listening to Roderick play the guitar. Okay, Roderick keeps playing, and then like a good friend, this narrator, encourages him. Now, Roderick then tells the narrator at one point that he believes the house in him, the house he lives in, the house of Usher, kind of is alive, and it's making him do things. Okay, basically, he says that the house is haunted. Now, this is where Poe brings in, the hauntedness or the horror into the story. Okay, anyway. In the meantime, what happens is Madeline dies. So this twin sister who was suffering from unknown disease, she dies. Roderick is afraid that the doctors will take his sister's body, open up and research, and they will try to find out what caused the death, and they will do research on her. So what he insists is that she will be buried for 2 weeks inside the house before being permanently buried. So he says, no, I will put my sister, I'll bury her inside the house for 2 weeks. And after the doctors kind of sort of forget this case, I will take her out and then bury her properly. The narrator kind of helps Roderick put Madeline's body into a tomb, because there are only two people left in the home. They put this dead girl's body into a tomb. Over the next week, what happens is both Roderick and the narrator find themselves, very anxious and agitated about stuff. Somehow they have this, gut feeling, which is not very good. Now, then what happens is a storm begins. There is a storm that happens in that area, and Roderick comes to the narrator's bedroom shouting crazily. He's like, something's wrong. Now, throwing the windows open, Roderick points out and that the lake surrounding the house seems to glow in the dark. So basically what he says is, he comes running into the narrator's room, and then he opens the window, and then he says there's a lake that is surrounding the house, and then he says it is glowing in the dark. Narrator kind of tries to calm down like a good friend does or anybody does. He says, calm down, Roderick. And he says, okay, let me read you a book. So he reads a book. And as he is reading, he and Roderick hear a cracking sound. Okay. And, something is ripping apart and then cracking sound from somewhere in the house. At first, the narrator ignores the noises, and then he says, this must be something that's coming from outside. But Roderick becomes increasingly like agitated and hysterical and then starts shouting. And he's like, no, something is wrong with the house because he thinks the house is haunted, remember? So Roderick says that he has been hearing these sounds for days and then, that they are being made by his sister who was, in fact, alive when he was buried. So he believes this, okay? The sister was dead, but then, he believes that his sister was probably alive when she was buried inside the house. So the narrator and Roderick have actually buried a woman who was alive. So anyway, while the narrator is still reading, the bedroom door opens and Madeline is standing there at the door. Now remember, Madeline is a dead girl. Okay, so the ghost of Madeline is standing at the door with blood all over her. Okay, she attacks her brother, falls on him, and Roderick dies. Okay, so the sister has killed the brother. Now here both Roderick and Madeline die, right? Now the only person remaining is the narrator. The narrator then runs from the house, and as he does, he notices a flash of moonlight behind him. Okay, there's a thunder. Now he turns back in time to see the moon shining through the suddenly widened crack. Remember at the starting of the story, I said the narrator, when he was coming, there was a tiny crack. Now, because of this, lightning, what happens is, and thunder, what happens is that crack has widened up in the house. And as he watches, the house of Usher splits in two halves and then it falls down. So it just falls down. Okay, that is where Poe ends the story. All right. Hold on for 1 second. Okay. Did everybody understand the story? I'm not saying understand every single word of it, but gist of the story is what I said. Does everybody understand the gist of the story, or do they have any questions?
సార్ కొంచెం తెలుగులో చెప్పాలి సార్, అంటే వర్డ్స్ క్లియర్ గా బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది మధ్య మధ్యలో.
Okay, I am really bad at explaining in Telugu. Is there any Telugu speaker in the class who has understood the story? Right? Apart from Prasad, is there anybody in the class who can very quickly give a summary, not a full summary or anything?
Sir, I have given a chat. Sir, it is Chandramukhi movie. We can have a keen observe. If you get into an imagination, we will do understand, sir. Example, Chandramukhi movie.
Okay. Can you, I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm Swati, sir.
Okay. Swati, can you explain it in Telugu so that Prasad is more comfortable?
Sir, if he watches movie, then he can understand, sir.
Okay.
The
Okay.
unique aspect we can understand.
I'm not watching the movies. I'm only watching Hindi, not Telugu.
Okay, wait. Rajni says, Rajni can explain. Rajni, can you go ahead, please? Very quickly, like in about 3-4 minutes, can you explain the plot?
ఇక్కడ ఏంటంటే 3 క్యారెక్టర్స్ ఉన్నాయి సార్. ఒకటేమో నరేటర్ దానికి పేరు లేదు ఆ క్యారెక్టర్ కి. దెన్ రెడ్ డ్రెస్ ఉషర్ వచ్చేసి ఒక క్యారెక్టర్. ఆయన ఏంటంటే మెడ్లైన్ ఉషర్, వీళ్ళిద్దరు ఏంటంటే కమల పిల్లలు. అయితే వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారంటే ఈ కనిపించే హౌస్ లో ఉంటారు. అయితే అక్కడ ఏంటంటే వాళ్ళ లైఫ్ లో ఫెస్టివల్స్ కానీ సంథింగ్ ఏమి ఉండదు. అక్కడ వాళ్ళ ఉషర్ చెల్లె రిడ్రిక్ చెల్లె మెడ్లైన్ ఏంటంటే ఒక సైకలాజికల్ ఇల్నెస్ తోటి బాధపడుతుంది, అనారోగ్యంతో. ఆమె చనిపోతుంది. చనిపోయినప్పుడు ఆమె డెడ్ బాడీని ఆ హౌస్ లోనే పూడ్చి పెడతారు అన్నమాట. అయితే ఈ నరేటర్ అక్కడికి రెడ్రిక్ పిలిచిడని చెప్పి ఈ నరేటర్ వెళ్తాడు. వెళ్ళి అక్కడ ఆయన పరిస్థితి చూసి అక్కడ ఆమెని బయట సమాధి చేయడానికి వీలేదని చెప్పి ఆ హౌస్ లోనే సమాధి చేస్తారు. తర్వాత ఏమవుతుందంటే ఆయన ఒక చెల్లె ప్రేతాత్మగా మారి ఆ రిడ్రిక్ ని వేధిస్తుంది అన్నట్టు. అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే రెడ్రిక్ కూడా చనిపోతాడు. చనిపోయినప్పుడు ఏమవుతాడంటే నరేటర్ ఆ హౌస్ నుంచి బయటకు వస్తాడు. వచ్చినప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే ఆ హౌస్ అనేది కూలిపోతా ఉంటుంది.
Perfect.
Hello.
Prasad, does that help?
Okay. Oh, okay, sir. Okay. It's not a big.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajni. Okay, now let us talk
Welcome,
about Poe's magic. Okay. The first thing is that when you read this story, you will note that every single word is relevant and needed in the story. There are no extra descriptions, there are no extra words or anything. That's the first thing that you notice in this story. Second thing is we talked about the effect that the short story should have on its readers. Remember when Poe was talking about effect, he said, you first have to figure out or try to find out the effect, determine the effect, or decide the effect, and then, you have to build incidents around it. This short story has like Gothic elements. I'm not sure if you've come to the Gothic uh, stuff in British literature, but it
Supernatural
has,
elements.
yeah, supernatural elements, which puts him or her in a very uncomfortable position. Now, this is the second thing. And thirdly, we talked about how Poe says that the writer should first determine the effect of the story. Fear and haunting are the effects that Poe wants from the story. Okay, basically, when you read the story, as a reader, you will have fear and then there's haunting feeling. And that is what Poe wants from the readers, or Poe wants the readers to experience. And this is very, very apparent and evident from the first line in the text. Okay, if you look at the first line in the text, it's there on your screen. It says, during the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I had been passing alone on horseback. If you see the words that are bolded on your screen and in yellow, dull, dark, soundless day, clouds hung oppressively low, passing alone, all these are, indicative of fear and haunting. They set the stage for fear and haunting. So right from the first line, Poe is a master at doing this. He masterfully brings in the effect of whatever he wants. Okay, that's the greatness of Poe. Now, his stories are not for action of characters or something. If you look at our story that we just looked at, it's not that the characters are doing some kind of fighting or there's a lot of action going or whatever, but his short stories are more for presentation of design. Basically, how the effect, like we talked about, how the effect is brought in. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
if you're speaking on the text, no, like the whole lesson, you have a short form of PDF, like you're showing the figures.
PDF. I'm not sure. Can you say that again? What PDF?
Actually, you are presenting the lesson, sir, as you are showing the lesson now with simple way, whole of a dull, dark. Like that, the whole lesson is there in the way of presenting. Display.
Oh, you mean the PPT? The PPT itself, is it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, it will be recorded as part of the video. So it should be there on YouTube. If not, then I will send it to one of you and then they can share it in the WhatsApp. I can send you the PPT. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Let me quickly check the chat.
Allan Poe is not like Edgar. Edgar means next story. Next story means which is the lesson. It's not like bird. Bird means Moby Dick. It's not like Moby Dick, no?
No. The one that we just talked about is a short story. It's not a big one. Moby Dick is like about 400 pages, the complete thing.
Yeah, Moby Dick is a big story. Story means it's like a...
It's a novel, yes.
Yeah. Oh, novel. Yeah. It's not like that, no? This is a small story where you want to...
Yes, this is a small story. Yeah, it's a short story. Yes.
The writer convey what is the convey the people, sir? Allan Poe.
Yeah, he wants the effect to be haunting and fear. Basically, when you read the story, you will feel like you will have fear because there is a ghost standing, and then you will have fear because the old home is
traditions.
old
house, and we see the old house charring that like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the themes of this story right now. Some of the themes are madness because, Roderick and like Rajni just said, even his sister, both of them they suffer from mental illnesses. Then there's fear. Then there's imagination because Roderick as well as Roderick fears that the house will make him do something. And then, he imagines these things. If you really think the house is actually not making him do anything, the house is just a building. But then he thinks that the house will make him do something. So he's imagining stuff. Mental illness is one of the themes. Then there is the supernatural. Whether there are supernatural forces or not is left vague by Poe. Okay, and the reader should determine for themselves. Why? Um, what we can take from the story is that fear, madness, and superstition often influence how people interact with the world. Okay, he's not actually telling you whether Madeline really got up and then was Madeline alive when she was buried initially. He's not talking about those things. He's basically give or making up these incidents surrounding the effect that he wants on the readers. Okay, and then he talks, and another can be collapse of body and mind. Any other themes that you can think of from this story? Yasmin says male companionship. Okay. You mean friendship, right? Friendship between Roderick and the unnamed narrator. Is that what you mean, Yasmin? Okay. Okay.
Not
Good.
like horror.
Horror. Okay. Okay. Pujita says horror. Anything else?
Sir, isolation.
Isolation. Very good. Okay. Swati, right?
Yes, sir.
Who said isolation? Okay.
And
Okay. How is isolation? Swati, explain how is isolation a theme in this story?
sir, what I understood is like he's isolated, walking to the mansion house. He feels very lonely, and no one is accompanying with him. So I felt like this is isolation. He is single.
Hmm.
Mm,
Okay. Okay. That's more aloneness, right?
yes, loneliness.
Yeah, loneliness, aloneness, actually. He's not even lonely, actually. But isolation, you can look at it from a different perspective, Swati. Now,
Okay,
these two people, right? These two people are living alone in that home, away from, everybody else, right? See, when they are living somewhere where people will be there, right? I mean, it's not like, they are there in a very isolated area or anything. But still, this friend gets a letter to come and then help them. They are not asking help from anybody in the village or town or wherever they are living. They are still isolated from, everybody around them,
okay.
right? So you can look at it from that perspective, that they are isolated or there is isolation built into the story.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. Fear not for the circumstances. Prasad, can you explain what that means? Fear not for the circumstances. Okay.
Under the place now.
Huh.
The situations are 1 minute.
Okay, basically you are saying there are situations, but they are not fearing those situations. Is that what you're saying? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay. 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 Swati, what link are you asking about?
Sir, everyone is sharing PPTs now, sir. I would like to join in that group. I am unable to know which group is it. But
Oh, okay. Can somebody, whoever is the account or the group admin, can you please send the link in the chat box later so that Swati can join that group, please? I'm not sure who the admin is. Okay. Anyway, like we
Admins in the
said.
groups are not responding, sir.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Is the admin in this class? If you are, can you please send the
There
link
are
in
so
the chat?
many groups are sir, from Andhra and Telangana. They don't know who are the correct, how many people are having groups.
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of this class, somebody will send some link. Okay, let's wait. Okay, going back to the Poe and then the themes. Like I said, these
Sir,
themes are yes.
sorry to disturb you, but
No, that's okay.
can we regard longing for the family as one of the themes because he doesn't want to let go of his sister?
Oh, very interesting question. he doesn't want to let go of his sister by burying her inside the home. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of, because he's worried that her body might be dismembered or something like that.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. Yes, it can be a particular theme. See, the thing is, with every single incident in the short story, and like I said earlier, because it is quintessential to the short story, it's very important for the short story to bring in the effect. Every single incident will have a theme, right? Samira, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So every single incident in the short story can contribute to a theme, right? So you are right. I mean, when he basically saying, I can't let go of my sister because she might be dismembered, she might be, an autopsy can be done, and then, she might be ripped apart, and then just to find the cause of her death, and he doesn't want to do that. Yes. Longing for family. That's what you said, right? Longing for family it can be one of the themes. So that's my whole point, actually. Samira, you bring up a very good point. That's my whole point. The point is, as you keep thinking about it, you will find more themes. So themes in a story, while they are not, they don't pop out at you in the initial thinking, they will keep popping out at you in the subsequent thinking. But if you remember how we define theme, it should be a major idea. You can't just say, house is a theme, and then crack is a theme, or old dilapidated building is a theme. These are not themes. These are symbols for something. But then the theme, when you identify a theme in a story, it has to contribute in a major way. Okay, it can't just contribute in a very minor way. Okay, so but then if you really want to distinguish between them, you can say major themes and minor themes. Does that make sense, Samira?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, Sujata says several main ideas threaded. Very good. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Somebody is saying, please ask them to send admission slip and they will be in the group. Can you please unmute whoever this person is? Can you please unmute and then let everybody know where they have to send the admission slip? Or you can actually, I will give you 5 minutes time at the end of the class, then we can discuss, okay? Let me finish the class and then you can discuss about, this admission slip and then the WhatsApp group. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, yeah, I mean, going on or like kind of holding on to what Samira said, tomorrow I can come and then say revenge is also a theme. Why? Because, Madeline is, for all we know, Madeline is already dead and whatever. But why did she have to get up from the tomb? And then why did she have to kill her own brother? Maybe she wants a revenge. That's why. So I mean, this is up to grabs, actually. You can think about it later. Okay, and then when you say, when you basically look at the story and then see what is the artistic purpose of the story, it's more like art for art's sake kind of thing, where there is no didactic message. There is nothing that Poe is trying to teach you here. There is no moral. He's not saying, you have to be like Roderick, or you have to be like Madeline, or you have to be like the unknown narrator. He's not saying this. His point is not teaching the reader a lesson. It's more art for art's sakes, basically. That's the artistic purpose of the story. Okay. Now we will see how to answer questions from this unit. The first one is discuss the development of the short story in America. It's a direct question. The answer is in section 5.3 of your course book. So you can directly go to section 5.3 and then that is where the answer is. Discuss the major themes of the fall of the House of Usher. We just discussed that. It's not directly discussed as themes, but some information is present in section 5.6.1 of your book. Okay, the first answer is in section 5.3. The second answer is in section 5.6.1. Okay, somebody is... Okay. Now we'll move on to the next unit. In this unit, we will come to the novel. Okay, we've just discussed about the short story. And now we will come to novel. We will talk about two great American novelists. One is Herman Melville and one is Mark Twain. Melville is when we will discuss what Prasad was talking about, Moby Dick, one of his most famous works. That is something that we will look at in specific. It was written in 1851. And then when we come to Twain, we will talk about Huckleberry Finn I think it was Sujata or somebody who mentioned in the last class about Huckleberry Finn when we were talking about adventure and something. So anyway, those of you who have attended the first class might remember that adventure is one of the major themes in American literature. Here, we discussed it in the first class also. Here, if you see, the title of Quain's book itself has the word adventure in it. And then we will discuss how that is a
Anything
theme.
want to say? Washington Irving?
Irving, we will come to Irving. Yeah, we will come to Irving.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's finish these guys, and then we will come to Irving. So where was I? Oh yeah, the title of the book itself has adventure, so you know that we will see how that theme kind of sort of fits into what we have been talking about until now. So in your exam, if you are writing about the theme of adventure, let's say the question is something like discuss the theme of adventure in American literature. You can talk about the section from the first unit, which talks about adventurers. And then you can also mention Huckleberry Finn as an example. So that's how you'll have to structure your answer. Okay, Moby Dick. I will not tell the story in detail because, like I said, it's a summary of the story is given in your course book. It's an interesting story. So when you have time, please go through it. It is a 400 plus pages book, like I mentioned. So it is kind of long, but I will give you a very short description of what Moby Dick is. Moby Dick is a story about a ship captain. His name is Captain Ahab, who wants to take revenge on a white whale, the animal whale. He wants to take a revenge on the white whale. The white whale's name is Moby Dick. Okay. Now, Moby Dick eats off Ahab's leg in one of his journeys. So Ahab goes into the ocean. He sees Moby Dick, and Moby Dick, breaks Ahab's leg and then eats it. Now, Ahab wants to kill this whale as a revenge. Okay. He's like, how can the whale, he's decapitated my leg, so I'm going to go back and then get a revenge. The whole story is narrated by this character called Ishmael. Okay. So in the previous story that we have seen, there was no name given to the narrator. In this story, there's a name given, and that name is Ishmael. So anyway, Ahab, Ishmael, and a lot of other people from different races and backgrounds across the world go on this voyage in a ship. The ship's name is Pequod. They take a ship and then they go into the middle of the ocean on a voyage. Now, what is the goal? The goal of the voyage is not for, fun or anything. It is to get whale oil. Okay. But our guy Ahab has a different plan. He wants to kill Moby Dick because the whale ripped off his leg in a previous voyage. Okay. The actual goal of the voyage is getting whale oil, but then this fellow has his own agenda. Okay. Anyway, rest of the story revolves around the adventures that the ship crew went through in finding this whale, people dying, and then in the end, what happens is Moby Dick kind of kills Ahab. Okay. Instead of Ahab taking a revenge, Moby Dick takes full revenge, and then he or whatever the whale is, kills Ahab. Now, Ishmael is the only survivor, and that is why he is the one who is narrating the story. I have simplified the story really, really, really shortly, but if you read the whole thing, either in your textbook or if you have the time and energy, if you read the 400 pages of Moby Dick, you will understand that there are tons of characters in this particular story which contribute to the story. Okay, now themes basically, one of the major themes of the story is limits of knowledge. What that means is neither nature nor human life can be understood perfectly. Okay, there is a limit to our knowledge. We cannot say we understand human life perfectly or we can understand nature perfectly. Why am I saying this? In multiple instances, the crew members of the ship wonder about their fate because they're in the middle of the ocean. They have storms, they have this, they have rough waters and everything. So these people wonder about their fate and then they wonder what will happen to them. So there is this limited knowledge, which is a underlying theme in this particular work. Another theme that we can talk about is fate versus free will. Free will is basically you determine what will happen. Fate is, whatever supernatural being that you believe in, or you call it God or some power or somebody else will determine what happens. That's fate. And then free will is you have a free will and then you will determine what happens to you. Okay, despite the limits of human knowledge, this character Ishmael, who is the narrator, and other characters are often trying to interpret signs. Okay, basically they say, okay, oh, this happened, so this is a sign of something else. In regular life also we see this. If there is a sign, then we say, oh, God has given me this sign, so let me do this. So this is the same as in Moby Dick. So they will try to interpret these signs. So there is this absurdity where the characters know that they don't have no absurdity. I don't mean in a derogatory sense. I'm talking about the absurd, literary view of absurdity. So there is this absurdity where the characters know that they don't have knowledge about their fate, but still they try to find out what will happen to them. That is what we all do. Actually, that's the absurdity of human life, is what I'm saying. Not I am saying, like people like Albert Camus and everybody who were writing the absurd novels and works, they are saying, we know that nothing is in our control. We know that we have a limit to our knowledge, but still we try to find out what will happen in the future, what will happen. If I do this, maybe something good will happen. We have this hope. So there is this contradiction or conflict between free will versus fate. That's another major theme. Then another theme is nature and man. Like I said, Moby Dick and Ahab is one. It's raw nature, raw animal versus Ahab. And there's also Ahab versus the ocean, right? Ahab versus the whale, the Ahab versus oceans. Both of these are nature and man. Now, man tends to treat nature as something with emotions. Now, he personifies nature, right? But in fact, the other way around, nature is indifferent to man and what he thinks. Okay, man basically thinks nature is this, nature is that, nature is beautiful, nature this, nature that way is the perspective from man. But if you look at the other way, nature doesn't care what man thinks, right? So it's indifferent. So there's this conflict that is underlying between nature and man. Okay. Give me a second. Okay? Okay. Then there is madness, of course, because there's Ahab's madness about, he must be really stupid to think that, he can go into the middle of the ocean and then kill a white whale in its own territory. Okay. Ultimately, which led to his death. So there's madness. And then one thing that somebody mentioned, male companionship. I think it was Yasmin. But anyway, that is one of the major themes in this particular work, which is fellowship and friendship. Okay. A good example is a friendship between this character Ishmael, and then there is another guy called Queequeg. Ishmael's close friendship with Queequeg kind of shows this. Also, it shows the racial tolerance, which we'll talk about in the next work also, Huckleberry Finn. But initially, Ishmael doesn't like this guy, Queequeg, because he's a cannibal from an island and everything. But he soon, what happens is there's a very beautiful friendship that forms between these two people because of Queequeg's loyalty and affection. Ishmael kind of likes him, and then there's a beautiful friendship that forms. So, friendship and fellowship is another thing. Then, revenge is another theme, death is another theme. Anything else that you can think of very quickly? What else can be a theme? Okay, his goal is achieved. Okay, running behind the goal is one of the themes. Lack of moral and intellectual knowledge. Okay, that's good. That is one. Asad says Ahab wants to take revenge. So revenge is a theme. Yes, that's right. Anything else that you can very quickly think of that is a theme of this work? Yeah, still fighting enemy, Prasad. I think what you're saying is he knows his limitations, but still he goes and fights with the enemy. Is that what you're saying? He probably at some level knows that he cannot win a
Yes,
fight
yes,
with
sir.
a white
Yeah.
whale in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, continuing, go on.
Yeah.
Still difficulties come up, but still rising.
Okay.
Like Titanic ship.
Okay.
Yeah, like the
Asad
shipwreck.
says a very important and very interesting thing. He says idealization of Ishmael. Asad, can you explain what that means? Where is the author trying to idealize Ishmael? It's a very interesting observation, but I just want to understand, or I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correct. What do you mean by idealization of Ishmael? Asad, you there on the call?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, Ishmael wanted to say that nobody, something is kill. Kill means which is the animal, like which is and he wanted to something is very extraordinary, sir. He want to present the whole Moby Dick is the richest animal, like that. He wanted to explain. Like,
Greatest animal, that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the force of nature. Yeah. Okay, good.
You want to capture.
Yes. Oh, yeah, good. That's a good observation. Yes. Okay, Asad, it seems like Asad is not on the meeting, or he just responded. Ishmael realizes obedience to Almighty. Okay. Arshia says bravery and strong. Moby Dick was a whale. Bravery and strong. Okay, bravery and strength is what. Okay, yeah, depth of human nature. Okay, we can go on for the whole day with finding these themes, right? Like the whole point is that we can find the themes, but like I said, we have to draw a line somewhere, right? Where do we draw the line? Basically, according to theoreticians or thinkers, the line is drawn when or whether or not that theme contributes very well to the story or plot, or it is just a minor thing. So if it's a minor thing, it's a very minor theme. And if it's a major, if it contributes to the story and plot, it's a major theme. Okay, let's move on to Huckleberry Finn. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, that's Mark Twain's most famous novel. I'm kind of thinking most of us have read the novel, or we have read a lesson about it in our school or wherever. Now, this novel is also longish with over 350 pages or something. It has about 45 chapters and is considered to be a sequel of an earlier novel. The earlier novel is Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Either we have read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn, or both in our school, that's for sure, in our English classes. But anyway, I'll very quickly give the story. The story basically begins with Huckleberry Finn taken into the home of a widow. Her name is Widow Douglas, and her sister, Miss Watson, and they try to teach him some proper manners and religion. Huckleberry Finn is a really mischievous kid. So he is being taken by Widow Douglas and Miss Watson, and they try to teach him some proper manners and religion. Now, instead of obeying them, of course, Huck is a very mischievous guy. He sneaks out of the house at night to join Tom Sawyer's gang, and they pretend that they are robbers and pirates and, the regular mischievous stuff that he does. So right off the bat, we know that Huck Finn is a mischievous boy who doesn't listen to others. That is something that Wayne very clearly tells us in the starting of the story. Now, one day, Huck's father, who left him earlier, he returns. His father leaves him in the childhood, and then he returns, and his name is Pap Finn. Now, Pap has a history of violence. He's a drunkard. He drinks a lot. Huck is worried about his dad's intentions. He thinks that, the dad will steal his money, hit him, and then, abuse him and everything. So Pap, what he does is he kidnaps Huck and takes him to a small cabin in the woods. And Huck is initially happy because there is no one to teach him manners. So he's like, finally, I'm away from these two ladies. And then there's nobody to teach manners and religion. So initially he's very happy, but then his dad abuses him by hitting him and everything. So Huck kind of fakes his own murder and escapes from his dad. He escapes from the cabin. By chance, he meets Miss Watson's slave. His name is Jim. Okay, so there is again a beautiful friendship that forms between Jim and Huck. We'll see that. Now, who runs away for fear that he will be sold. Now, in those days, or this is set in a time when slaves were there, and then they were bought and sold. Okay, so Jim runs away from his master in the fear of being sold. The rest of the story revolves around how Huck and Jim escape, getting caught, and then they experience troubles. Then they meet Tom Sawyer. In the end, what happens is Jim, the slave, is released and set free. And Huck starts thinking about his next adventure. Of course, Huck is like our mischievous guy. So one adventure is done. So he starts thinking about the next adventure. That's how the novel ends. Okay. Okay, let me very quickly check chat. Somebody is... it was his hardship that he was going through. Okay. Anyway, the major theme is slavery and racism. The novel is set in pre-Civil War time period in America, which is like in the 1860s. The Civil War between North and South happened. If you don't know what that is, basically slavery was legal at that time in the US. So there was a fight between the North and the South. One was towards abolishing the slavery and one was towards having it. So anyway, the North one. So in this novel, many of the white people own slaves and treat them very badly. They sell them off to others as if slaves are objects. So they are not treated as human beings, they are treated as objects. So multiple places in the novel, white people talk as if slaves are not human beings. For example, in one of the scenes between Huck and Tom Sawyer, her aunt or his aunt says or asks basically, is anybody hurt? And Huck says, no, ma'am, just a slave got killed. And then her response to that is, well, it's lucky because sometimes people do get hurt. So if you look at this, there's so much of apathy towards the slaves that she's initially asking, did anybody get hurt? And then Huck says, no, only a slave got killed. As if, the slave's life is not important. And then she says, well, it's lucky it's only the slave because sometimes people do get hurt in these things. So only the white people are people, slaves are not people. That's the, thing that has to be highlighted here. Okay, another theme is religion and hypocrisy. Now, this author attacks organized religion in this novel. Okay. Again, these are the opinions of the author. We are not going to discuss whether organized religion is good or not. That's outside the scope of this class and our discussion. But according to the author, organized religion is not a good thing. The white people swear by Christian ideal of tolerance. Okay, the Christian religion or Christianity as a religion says that tolerance is required. It's mandatory. Now, all the white people swear by this Christian ideal of tolerance in the novel. However, they don't see the contradiction between, what they believe and how they treat the slaves. One thing is they go to the church and then basically say tolerance is required. And then they come home and then they have slaves. So there's a contradiction between, what they believe and then how they treat. This is not only regarding the slaves, but hypocrisy is evident within the white groups also. There are many groups in the novel, the shepherd sons and others. And they basically listen to the sermon on brotherhood, where the pastor or whoever is giving the sermon basically says, everybody should be having brotherhood. We are all the same. We are all Christians, that kind of stuff. But immediately, right after coming out from the church, they become enemies. Okay, so these are noble families that fight for no reason. So they don't even know why they continue to fight. So where there is brotherly love, they can learn from what are they learning from the sermon? So Twain basically highlights this fact that while there is organized religion and while the religion propagates or advises you to have brotherhood and have tolerance, immediately right after coming out of the church, all those things are ignored and then people become, people. Okay, another theme is freedom. This novel has two main visions of freedom. Okay, one is Huck and Jim both seek freedom in one way or the other. Okay, if you look at it, there's a difference. Now, these two characters, Huck and Jim, if you really look closely at these characters, Huck's freedom is not same as Jim's freedom. Right? Jim is a slave. His idea of freedom is different from what Huck's idea of freedom is. For Jim, freedom is not being a slave, and freedom can make him return to his wife and children and then going away from the master. But for Huck, the freedom is not being forced to follow this good manners and societal norms and everything and religious things that his aunt is trying to teach him. For freedom for him is to be himself and not follow these manners and all these things. So even though the idea of freedom is different for different characters, it does form a major theme. That's my point. Okay, so when you write about freedom in Huckleberry Finn, you will have to distinguish between the types of freedom that we are talking about. Okay, does this make sense? Or I can repeat this particular theme. Does everybody understand how these two types of freedom are different? But how they still form a major theme in this novel? Okay, anyway, somebody said, I think it was Yasmin who said innocence. That's a very good observation. And I will take you back to the unit 1 that we in which we discussed innocence to experience. That's one of the themes, right? So you can see how, Huck When he was at home, he was very innocent, and all he was trying to do was, get away from the rigid manner in which his aunt was trying to raise him. From there, he goes out and then he experiences life, and then he experiences gyms, friendship, and everything. So yes, innocence is one of the themes. Now, looking at this novel, one would imagine, the author, Mark Twain, to be an optimist who roots for equality in the society and all. Because when he started off the novel, he says, there's Jim, and then at the end, Jim gets freedom and everything. So when you look at the novel, it looks like the author is somebody who roots for equality in society and all. While he started off like this, he turned into a pessimist towards the end of his career, especially, when he started writing What is Man and The Mysterious Stranger, this kind of stuff. He was really bothered by the inhumanity of man and the cruelty one can commit against another man. Okay. In Twain's words, he called it the damned human race. Okay. He basically says the human race is damned. And then, how can a human being commit so much of atrocity, so many atrocities, and how can they be inhuman towards his or her fellow human beings? So that tells us that how much pessimism he had on the human race itself. So he started off as an optimist, but then in the end of his career, he kind of sort of became a pessimist. Okay, Asad says humanity. Very good. Yes, humanity forms a major theme in this novel. Okay, we are about we are exactly on top of the hour. So let me see what the next slide is. Then we will. Okay, we will see how to answer questions from this unit, and then we will recap questions and then stop. Okay. Answering questions from this unit, explain some of the themes of Moby Dick. We have already discussed those. I think they are given in your book also. We discussed themes like nature versus man, fate versus free will, madness, friendship, male companionship. Somebody said, okay, anyway, you can write about these themes and give examples from the characters of the novel. That's a pretty straightforward question. Then, this is a little critical and complicated kind of question. They can ask you, discuss the adventures of Huckleberry Finn as a critique of the American society. Now, in order to answer this question, you have to know what Huckleberry Finn is set in, during what time period, and then how American society was at that time. Like I just said, Huckleberry Finn is set in a time where slavery was still legal, and then there were slaves that people owned, white people owned, slaves. So you can talk about racism, slavery, and the general view of American society from the novel's perspective here. Okay. This is, like I said, it's a...
President of Abraham Lincoln, that time.
No, this was before Lincoln. This was before Lincoln. Yeah. So you can talk about slavery. You can talk about, like I said, in general American society where people owned people. They didn't just, talk to people and have brotherhood. They owned people. Okay, just to end the class, here are some recap questions. Describe two themes of the fall of the House of Usher. Anybody very quickly? Can anybody tell us what are two themes in the fall of House of Usher? You can unmute yourself and then just speak.
It can be like horror and fear, sir.
Horror and fear, very good. Yes, yeah, Harship, that's good. And then describe two themes of Huckleberry Finn. Anybody else?
Slavery and racism.
Slavery and racism. Okay, Samira, can you give me one more? Slavery, racism kind of are related, but can you give me one more? That's good. Slavery
Freedom
and racism
in childhood.
Freedom in childhood. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Sir,
Okay, good.
Sir, discrimination.
Perfect. So you mean racial discrimination, right, Asad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is exactly what Samira was trying to say. Racism, and yeah, that's a good theme. That's actually, in fact, the major theme of this whole book. Okay. Then who wrote the book Moby Dick? Anybody else?
Marvel something. Marvel.
Yep.
Herman
Melville wrote Moby Dick. Okay. See, the thing is, I will end the class by saying one thing. You will have to be an expert literally at Unit 1. Okay. Unit 1 gives you a lot of information on what are the major themes across American literature. Doesn't matter which book or whatever. Most of the themes you can find in most of the books that we discuss. So my suggestion is become an expert on Unit 1, know all the themes, and then you apply those themes to everything that we are talking about. So just like we just saw, adventure was one of the themes that we discussed in Unit 1, and we can apply that to Huckleberry Finn. We can also apply that to Moby Dick. Okay. So
Okay, thank
whatever
you.
answer you are writing, my suggestion is use the Unit 1 or, the first unit, not even the unit, the first block, and then apply it to the rest of the blocks. The rest of the blocks are just, not just, but then the rest of the blocks are stories, poems, dramas, and that kind of stuff, right? Plays. So we will have to understand that the first unit is a very, very important unit that will feed into the rest of the units. Okay. So remember that. And then if you can read the unit multiple times, then that's good. Okay. Let's take a pause here for today and continue in the next class. I think that's tomorrow, right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
In the next class, what we will do is we will move to 20th century American novel. We will talk about two novelists. Both of them won the Nobel Prize, William Faulkner and Hemingway. We will look at Faulkner's Light in August, and then we will look at Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. Okay, we will do the same thing like we did today. I will give a very quick overview of the story, and then we will try to analyze the story, and then we will see if there are any important themes. Okay. We will also, if we have time tomorrow, we will quickly go through the contemporary fiction and then move on to poetry. Okay. Poetry also is an extremely good block in your this thing. We will talk about Dickinson and other poets. Okay. So we will, if you don't have any other questions, we will stop the class.
So what does
today.
critic mean, sir?
I'm sorry, say that again, Arshia. What is what?
What does critic means?
Critique.
Yes.
Okay. Which critic are you talking about? CRITIC or CRITIQUE?
CRITIQUE.
Okay. Critique basically means you're talking about a particular piece of work in a critical manner. What that means is you're not just summarizing it. Okay, if you take, let's say, Moby Dick, you're not just summarizing the story, but then you are also looking at, how it figures in the socio-political situation of that era. How, Ahab is a hero for some people, how Ahab is not a hero for some people, how Ishmael is, a hero for some people, how it's not. And you're analyzing the story. You're not just summarizing it, but you're analyzing the story and then coming up with your own viewpoints and perspectives. That is critique.
Just like comments.
Comments which are not just, on the story. It also talks about other things and how, everything figures out in the, like I said, socio-political and other situations. Does that make sense, Arshia?
So does it mean is it related to perception, how I think, how other think about the story and all?
Yes. When you are critiquing it, it's your perspective.
Yes.
Okay, if Edgar Allan Poe is critiquing it, then it is his perspective. And your perspective might not be the same as other person's perspective.
Similarly, yes.
Yeah.
It is
so like I
different
just
from
said, I mean, you
human
might
to human.
say, yeah. So Arshia, as you as a person and a critic, CRITIC, can come up and then say, Ahab is a hero. Ahab is a hero for me because he went, no matter what it is, he went out and then he went behind the white whale and then he tried to kill it. So that makes him hero for me. I, as Ashwin, will come up and then say he is not a hero because he was being just stupid. I mean, he knows that, he will be killed in the middle of the ocean with these, storms and currents and hard water and everything. But still he went and then, he brought his own death to himself. So he's not a hero. So your critique, QUE, is different from my critique, right?
Okay.
So they can be different.
Like I understood that was his hardship, sir.
That was his hardship. Yes. Yeah, that was his hardship because he couldn't let go of it, right? I mean, sometimes we can't let go of things.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I will give you, we still have 5 more minutes or so. So I will give you this time to talk to, let me see what their name is. Diana.
Sir, somebody was.
I think
Sir,
that was,
Somebody was asking about the groups. Actually, the group admins,
Yeah.
they are asking for the admission slip. Without admission slip, they will not they will not add into the groups. They need an admission slip picture image actually.
Okay, but then who do they have to send to? I mean, can somebody coordinate
If
this,
somebody
please?
knows, yeah,
I can only talk about the textbook and the things in textbook. This is kind of sort of admin. So can whoever was asking for access to that group, can they unmute themselves and then talk?
Yeah. Hi friends, I'm Diana.
Okay.
Hope I'm audible to you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Well, we are around 6 people who are admins in the group. There are 2 groups being maintained. One is the college group, and the other that's related to like a faculty members would be there in the group, and they keep sharing us meetings that they do.
Please send your number, Diana.
Okay, I'm just telling it right away. It's 970.
Diana, hold on. Don't tell it right away. Can you please send it in the chat, because this is a YouTube thing and
Sure,
there's
I'll do that.
privacy
Okay.
things. That's why. Yeah.
By
Just
chat,
send
you
it in
can
the
send
group.
me for,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Mr.
Yeah.
Prasad.
Can
You
you
can send
share
it
it
to
on the share
everybody.
box chat?
Okay, I'll do that.
So what
Yeah.
is absurdity?
Okay, that's a difficult question that you've asked, but okay, I will explain it in very simple terms. Absurdity basically is as a human being, we know that not everything is in our control, right? I mean, we can't control everything. If we can control everything, we would become gods. So we cannot control everything, and the human life itself is filled with hardships and everything, but we still try to make things better, right? We still try to, have hope and everything. So thinkers like Albert Camus and everybody, they say that is the absurdity of life. When you know that nothing can become perfect, but still you try to make it perfect. That is absurd. Okay, I am simplifying the concept, but for now, that's absurd. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I will leave you all here. I will keep the
Sir,
meeting
one
open.
last question.
Yes, Amira.
I don't know if you're part of the group, but in case you are, could you please share any notes that might help us with the exams and all?
I am not part of the group, and I don't think I should be part of the group also. That's why
Okay.
I'm not part of the group. But I am not sure if I can give you notes. I personally don't prepare and also prefer notes, because, like I keep saying, the book itself is a pretty small book, right? I think it's about 200 pages or something, your course book. So it only has the important stuff. I mean, there's no fluff inside the course book anyway. But I will try, and then in the last class, right, in the 8th class that we have, I will try and give you some important topics. Okay, that doesn't mean that these are the topics that will be focused on in the exam or anything. That's not what it means. It basically means if you understand those topics, you will be in a better position to answer,
Yeah,
the
maybe something
questions in the
like
exam.
Cliff Notes or something similar.
Yeah, I'll try and do that. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining this class, and I'll see you in the next class then. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
What time next class begin? 1:45? Anyone have idea?
1:30.
1:30. Okay. Bye.
Hello.
सारा वो बॉटल का है वापस करना है।
पता है ना जी।
वो लेने आया कहते